Good morning. This is VirtualPBX-admin training. We'll give people a couple minutes here to get signed on if they're going to join us. The training lasts about an hour and a half, possibly a little longer if I have slow load times or if I forget something and have to backtrack. We do record these trainings, so feel free to leave if you need to, and you can come back later and view the entire recording at your leisure. Obviously, previous recordings or trainings were also recorded, so you can go back to those at any time. This also lets you share the link with other staff members who maybe need to become system admins down the road. We are here every Tuesday, barring holidays or other issues that could crop up, whether it's technical or PTO, that sort of thing. With that in mind, you will not be having a training on Tuesday, July 4th, which is a bit in the future, but just a heads up. Feel free to make use of YouTube's chat feature to ask a question about any feature that I'm talking about, and I'll try to address it at that time or backtrack to it if I missed it initially. But with all that said, let's go ahead and get started. So here on the screen, you see our Dash login page. You can get there by going in your address bar of your browser to dash.virtualpbx.com. We need 3 pieces of information for you to log in. The first, your email address. That's unique for each user. Then we need your password. And then we need your account name. Now, for the email address, it should be in all lowercase. The password is case sensitive, and the account name is actually not case sensitive. Now, if for some reason you don't have your information or it didn't work for whatever reasons, down here towards the bottom right, just above the sign-in bar, there's a forgot your info link. You click on that, flips the box around. We still need your email address. All right, again, all lowercase. And then right here, we need one of these 2 pieces of information, right? So we need either the account name or a phone number that's on the account. That's a customer-facing phone number. Generally speaking, easier to use the account name because that's usually your business name or organization name. You click on reset password. The system will then send you an email, right, to the email address that you put up here. That email will have a link that lets you sign into your account user page to let you then change your password. If you try to navigate away from that page, the system will log you out. And also once you change the password, it will log you out. But then you come back to this page here, so you can type in that new password. You also have the option here to click on Remember Me. Now, in general, I do recommend bookmarking this page, so you can always get here quickly if you need to. And then we click Sign In. Now, I'm using a test account that I use on a regular basis, and as such, it is taking me right to the dashboard page. If it's your first time logging in, the system will actually take you to your user account page. And you can always get there by clicking on your name at the top of the page towards the right-hand side. It basically opens up a new box. It's a large pop-up. You see here your user account, right? So your email address, password is the main thing that's changed, although some people also change their time zone or language. As a system admin, you also have access to the account settings over here on the left. The main thing that people change is the time zone and or the display language, right? And these are pull downs. If you ever need to change the account name, you actually need to email our billing team, and that's billing at virtualpbx.com. They need to know the current name of the account and what you want to change it to, as there are several things they need to change on the back end to make sure everything syncs up properly. Also, on that first login, the Dash wizard has pop-ups, right? So it's telling you what certain things are. Once you're done here, click Close. There's a little box towards the top right, and then you'll be here on the dashboard page. The Dash wizard will continue if it's your first login, right? Highlighting what certain things are. Brief layout here. On the left-hand side, going down, these are major Dash features. Most of these are included on all Dash accounts. The exception being the auto attendance tab, which is a plan specific feature, right? Available on some plans, not all. The Dash Wizard will also have pop-ups on the Groups tab and on the Users tab, and I'll cover that. Just keep in mind, basically, those are the next two things you need to add in terms of being able to route calls places for the most part. So up here at the top, you have your name, right? You click on that, it gets you back to the account, your user account page, so you can change your password. For most of you, right to the right, immediately to the right of your name, you'll have a little toggle. It says DND for Do Not Disturb. If you click on it, it'll make it white or a light gray. And that means it's active, meaning you're not accepting calls. Right? So you might be skipped in groups or queues if you're making use of those, or calls sent to your extension will go right to voicemail. And then anyone trying to transfer a call to you, right? So like Bob has a customer who needs to speak to you, he tries to transfer to you, he'll get a message saying that you're not available, and then he instead has to transfer it directly to your voicemail. The reason I don't have it next to my name is I am part of the ACD queues or the call center, right? Those two features don't work well together. All right, next up, we have the little phone icon here. This will open up a new tab and take you to webphone.virtualpbx.net. This only shows up after you've added a web phone as a device on your user. On that web phone page, right, the webphone.virtualpbx.net, there's a login, right? It uses your Dash login information. Same email address, same password, same account name. This allows you to use Chrome or Firefox on a computer to make and receive calls. So it does count as a VoIP device. Then we got the little graduation icon here, or graduation cap. This will open up a new tab and take you to our support pages, right? So we have various guides for the various features, as well as adding devices. Some of those will also include short videos about that particular specific topic. Then we got the little chat bubble. All right, this will open up the chat window so you can speak to a support team member and they can help you walk you through a particular feature or setting. Then we got the three horizontal line icon, the menu icon, sometimes referred to as hamburger icon. This will take you to other Dash features, essentially non-core, but they're still available. Some of them are plan specific, so like dynamic caller ID. Others are included, like blacklists. The call center here, right? This is call queues. This is an upgrade fee or upgrade feature. So it's not included technically in any plan. You have to upgrade to it and as an add-on. Little arrow to the right, that's your logout icon. Here in the middle, I got total users. I have 23. That means I have 23 people on my account who make and receive calls. Most of our plans are based on a per user basis. So the more users you add, the higher your bill. Then I have total devices. I have 39 and a breakdown. Now, Dash was designed with VoIP phones in mind. If you don't already know, VoIP stands for Voice over Internet Protocol. In normal English, that means using your internet connection to make and receive calls. So first up here, we have SoftPhone. This is a software application that acts like a phone. So it's a VoIP device, uses your internet connection to make and receive calls. This breakdown here includes all soft phones. So whether it's the VirtualPBX soft phone or a third-party soft phone, it would be part of this number of 17. Cell phone. So on your Dash account, you can add cell phone numbers or even landline numbers as a device on your account. So this means we can route calls and they can ring to your cell phone number. Now, the main thing to keep in mind is when we send a call to a cell phone number, that's the endpoint. You're not going to be able to transfer that call to another staff member or another user on the account. You basically have to take it or ask the person to call back and hit the proper extension or menu option. The same would apply to a landline. Web phone, that Chrome or Firefox on a computer. Again, a VoIP device. On this account, it looks like I have 6 of them. And then here I have a SIP phone. So SIP phone is a hardware. It's a device, right? It sits on your desk. Generally speaking, connects via Ethernet cable to your router to get out, and then you can make and receive calls that way. So VoIP, general term, SIP is a subtype of VoIP phones, right? So when you're out shopping, you want to make sure you're looking for SIP compatible or SIP compliant phones. When we get to adding devices to a user, I'll show you the manufacturers and models that you can ideally you would look for in terms of buying, because then you can get more functionality out of them. There are other kinds of subtypes of VoIP phones on the market, so something to be aware of. And then lastly, I have a single landline device. Here I have, unregistered devices, and I have two, and that means I have turned two of my devices off, right? So there's an option under the devices tab to disable a device because you're currently not using it for whatever reasons. Then I have total numbers. These are phone numbers on the account. I have 32. Your plan includes at least some number of phone numbers as part of your monthly plan price. 32 is quite high. So I am paying an overage on a per number per month basis, right? So like say if my account includes 15 phone numbers, I'm paying extra for the other 17. If you just signed up with us, check the pricing page. That will have the breakdown for what extra numbers are. I believe it's $1.99. If you're on an older plan, you'd want to talk to our account services team. So first breakdown here, assigned numbers and spare numbers. Assigned numbers means you're using it. Someone can dial it and expect to speak to someone or leave a voicemail or join a conference or be sending a fax. Right? Spare number, you're not currently using it. It counts towards your allotment because like maybe you're about to use it, right? You're about to open a new store location in the next state over, different area code. You want to make sure you have the number ahead of time so you can start making the marketing materials and get everything set up for signage. Likewise, maybe you had a promotion that just ended. You're like, okay, let's take that number out of service, right? Make it spare. So now we're getting calls about something that's no longer valid. Another breakdown here, US DID and US toll-free. US toll-free is actually US Canada toll-free, right? 800 number, 888, all the way down to 833. US DID just means a US local number, right? So if you have a phone number in Peoria, Illinois, would show up under US DID, just like if you had one in Los Gatos, California. You can have international phone numbers if you are so inclined. You need to email our porting team, that's PORTING, at virtualpbx.com. They need to know the city and country that you're interested in getting a phone number in. They'll check to make sure that is available and if there are any additional requirements. Those requirements come from the country in question, not from us. Conference bridges, I have 7. That means I've enabled conferencing on 7 of my users, right? So 7 people on my account are moderating or hosting conferences. Now over here towards the top right, I have my main number box here. I've got 5 phone numbers in there. These 5 phone numbers all behave the same way, right? They're all going to the same location. They all play the same main greeting. Obviously, you can have multiple main numbers. You can choose to have one, even none. Up to you. Conference room numbers, you can have multiple conference room numbers. I only have the one here. They all go to the same location, though. They're all the same conference room numbers, or the same conference rooms. Now, this is the number you, right, your staff, your clients, your vendors, they would all dial this number to join a conference, right? Then they'll be prompted to enter a conference room number and a PIN number. Then we got the fax box number. This is your inbound fax number. You can only have the one main fax box number. You can have a user feature enabled to have individual users have their own fax number if you want to. Company directory, there's 2 links here. One's for CSV and the other is for soft phone. So CSV downloads a spreadsheet file, shows your staff members' names, their extensions, their primary devices. The soft phone is also a CSV file, but it's for use with the VirtualPBX desktop soft phone application. So if you're using our soft phone app on a Windows or Mac PC, you would download this file, upload it to your VirtualPBX soft phone. This will allow you to see the status of the other VirtualPBX soft phones on your account. Right? So if everyone's using the VirtualPBX soft phone as their only device, hey, you can tell who's on a call and who's not. If you have staff using a mix of devices, right? Let's say my colleague Mike has a Yealink phone as well as a soft phone. I'm not going to be able to know if he's on his Yealink phone. I can only see if he's on the soft phone via my own soft phone. All right, VirtualPBX Store. This opens up a new tab and takes you to store.virtualpbx.com. where you can order things like VoIP phones or routers, among other things. And then we have the account realm. Excuse me. The account realm is used in a couple different things. One, it's an identifier for your account, but it's primarily used in, or it's one of the three pieces of information needed for a third-party soft phone. Excuse me. But basically, you would need it to program or provision that third-party application. The other thing it's used for is for sending out a fax. Now, on your Dash account, once you set up your main fax box number, you can set up the fax box on there to allow for outbound faxing. Once you have that set up, any staff member, or potentially anyway, so once you have that set up, create an email like you would normally from the email that's associated with your user on your Dash account. In the to field, put the plus sign, the number 1, the area code and phone number you're faxing to, and then your account realm. Then you need to attach a PDF or a TIFF file. Only one attachment per email. The system looks at the to field, the from field, and the attachments. So anything you type in the subject line or in the body of the email is not getting transmitted. Now, just because you're sending an email, the system still has to convert that file, right, that PDF document, into analog signal. So it takes time for that fax to be transmitted, so you may not get an instant response to let you know that the fax went through. You will get an email letting you know if it went through or not. The system will retry a fax attempt 3 times, right? So like if the first time we tried, we got a busy tone, we wait, then it tries it again, right, to see if we can get through. And after that last attempt is when you get the email. All right, up here towards the top again, so I have sandbox training to the right of that, caller ID. I click on that, expands out. Now this pull down, which unfortunately doesn't show properly on my streaming software, this lets you select any of your main numbers, right? So that box over here to the right, any of those 5 numbers, I can choose one of them. That number becomes my default number for several different things. Primarily, for any of my VoIP phones, this will be their outbound caller ID by default. All right. Then next, you have the company caller ID name, or CNAME. In this box here to the right, you can type in up to 15 characters, including spaces or special characters. And this is associated with your phone number, right? So whenever you make an outbound call, that information would also be transmitted. Then the system will want you to enter in your company emergency information, or E911. Right? Wants a North American address. For our Canadian customers, in the zip code field, that is where you would put your postal code. And for the state, you would use your 2-character province abbreviation. Right? Then you click on Save Changes. Now, if you entered information in the company caller ID name field, at CNAME, after you click on Save Changes, that information gets transmitted to the other carriers who support CNAME. It takes them about 3 business days to update their databases. That's not something we can control. Some caveats you should know about the CNAME feature. Not every carrier that your call can route through supports CNAME. So it's possible, like when you pick up your VoIP phone, make an outbound call to say like your mother's cell phone. Right, call will route through. It goes through several different carriers before it reaches your mom's cell phone. If one of those carriers doesn't support CNAME, she's not going to see the CNAME information. She'll see the phone number, but she won't see the name information. The other thing to keep in mind is that last carrier, right? So whatever cell phone carrier your mom is on, right? So let's say it's AT&T. AT&T gets to decide what shows up on your mom's cell phone. So they can see our information that we're presenting. They say, okay, we'll pass that through, right? So then your name shows up, the phone number shows up. They can see that information and say, we don't want your information. We take the phone number, we send that through, and we'll double check against our own database. And whatever we have is what we'll put on the name information that shows up on your mom's cell phone. Or they can just say, no, not at all. We're just sending the phone number. And in fact, most cell phone carriers by default will only send through the phone number. Many of them want to charge their subscribers an additional monthly fee in order to have the CNAME information show up on the cell phones. Right? A lot of people probably don't want to do that because cell phones are kind of expensive. let's see what else. Okay. And also the cell phone carriers are the ones who put like spam or telemarketer, that kind of thing on their phones, or that's displays on the phones. That's not something we can control or necessarily change. Although there are uh, ways to whitelist your name with the individual carriers. All right. Hold music. On your Dash account, you can upload your own hold music. Just click upload and find a file on your computer. All right. The system will play back .wav and .mp3 files up to 1 MB in file size. Now, to save yourself some space, I recommend recording in mono, not in stereo. Uh, stereo is two outbound tracks, whereas mono is only one. So you'll save some data space there. And then you click on Save Changes. This will become the default hold music for all your staff members. So what that means, call comes into the system, you know, your employee Bob picks up the phone, he starts talking to the customer, says, hold on a minute, let me check on something. He presses hold on his VoIP phone, and that's when this media file will play. Oops, I clicked too much. So hours is part of main number. I'm going to come back to that though. So let's go down to users. All right, so users shows your users on the account. All right, these are people who make and receive calls, generally speaking. The people with the little blue suit icon, these are your system admins. Right, so they can make all the changes we're talking about here. The gray people icon, those are your standard users. They have very limited access. Generally speaking, they can like check their voicemail, they can see their call history, they can set up their own call forwarding. If they're in part of the call center, they can get to the call center on top of that. To add a new user, you click up here at the top, click Add User. You get a big old box, and you basically need to fill out the form, right? First name, last name, the system wants some sort of text, right? The email address used for login has to be unique for each user, right? So you cannot reuse an email address for multiple people. Then you create a password for them. And then here, you create an extension number for them, right? Now, this system was started with extension 1000, so it's offering the suggestion of the next extension number in that series is 1020, but I can change it to whatever I want. By default, the system will want to create a voicemail box for the user at the same time you create the user, right? So that means that voicemail box is tied to the user. For instance, if you create the user with this check mark here and you added a VoIP phone to the user and it gets registered, that person can pick up their VoIP phone, dial *98 on the phone, and then click call. That will log them directly into this voicemail box. The system will then walk them through creating a voicemail box PIN number, as well as then walk them through creating the voicemail box greeting. So basically, then they're all set up. Include in the user directory, just put a check mark if you want them in the directory, or leave it blank if you don't. You can change your mind later. Send emails to an alternate address. So by default, the system uses the email address used for login to communicate with the user, right? So that's what it uses to send voicemail notifications or password resets. Now, if you don't want that to happen, right, or if the user says, hey, don't send it to this email address, send it to my personal one, then you would come here, click on this little box, and enter in a different email address than the one used for login. Right? This will supersede the email address used for login. And then lastly, you have the option here to send credentials to the user. I personally recommend putting a check mark here, but sometimes you don't want to. If you're only creating one user, just click on Create User. If you have to add more, create user and add another. Now, if you just signed up with us, if you come to your Users tab, you'll have your name and you won't see an extension number. So what you would want to do on that first user, or for yourself probably, click on the extension box, click on Add an Extension, and then put in an extension number, right? And then Save Changes. And then it will use that as the basis for your extension series for the rest of the users you need to add. It would also allow you to enable your voicemail box feature on your user. On a user, you can click on the name, right? So you can change the name if you need to. Here, you can change their credentials. If you click on this, you can change the email address or you can change their password. You can also click there to send this person the reset password email directly. You can change their voicemail box PIN number temporarily. Just enter 4 digits and then save changes. You can also check on the voicemail box PIN number on the voicemail tab on the left. Here's your option to send to an alternate address. You can put a check mark and then the email address. Right, here's the option to be in the user directory or not. Over here to the right, this pull down allows you to change a user into an admin or an admin into a user. If you're the only user on the account, please do not change yourself into a user. Leave yourself as an admin. Little clock icon here lets you change the time zone for the user. And that's mostly so like their voicemail timestamps are the correct time. The little bell icon here, this is your ringing timeout. It defaults to 20 seconds. Now, for Aaron here, it's grayed out because he has a feature enabled called Follow Me. So that's superseding this. 20 seconds is the default. Typically plenty of time to send calls to a VoIP phone or a landline. If you have a staff member who's only receiving calls on a cell phone number, you'd want to increase this to at least 30 seconds, maybe up to 45. Right? It simply takes more time to route a call to a cell phone than it does to, say, a landline. Basically, the cell phone company has to find the phone every time. And then you have the extension number box. So users can have multiple extension numbers if you want them to. Just click here and then enter in the new extension number, then save changes. Under the phone numbers box here, you can add a phone number directly to a user, right? So this phone number would only ring this person. Now you have the option here to buy a number or add from spare, right? So buy a number is adding a new number to the account, right? So it's not already on the account anywhere, it's brand new, right? Add from spare is adding a number that you're not currently using, right? So if you have a number that's in use, so let's say we look here up at Ariel. Let's say I want to use this number instead on this Ariel test user, right? I would have to unassign it and save changes. Let's get back up here. And then I go to Ariel test. Then I can go from add from spare. And then I find that number, which I hope that was the right one. Click add selected and then save changes. Now, if I click this again, if I want to buy a new number, right, I just click buy numbers. I have an options for local and toll free. Toll free, 800 number, 888, right, all the way down to 833. Choose the prefix you want to work with. Click on search. And the system will provide a list of available phone numbers. Wow, saying nothing is available in 8655. That's strange. Uh-oh, there might be a problem with the toll-free numbers. Well, generally speaking, there'll be a list of numbers here that you would choose from. Here, let's go to local. Try 424. Yeah, so here, for local numbers, you need to know the area code you're looking for. If you get that message where there's saying there's no numbers available, do a Google search or Bing search for, like area code 310 overlay, and it will tell you the other available area codes you can use. But here you find a list of numbers. Now this list is dynamic, meaning you're actually competing with other people in real time. So when you click add, you haven't done anything. You're not reserving the number or anything like that, right? It's not until you click on buy numbers that the system then is actually trying to make sure the number was truly available and then adding it to your account. And it may take a little time. right? Then once it's here, then you click on Save Changes. Now it's actually added to your account. All right, let's go back here. Now, obviously, you see this little icon here next to aerial test, right? This lets you know that there's multiple, right? This would show up under like extension numbers as well, and even on uh, anywhere else. So let's go ahead and I'm gonna unassign that number and click on Save Changes. Oh, okay. So here under the devices box, you can see the current devices on a user, right? Or it might say none because you might not have any. Down here, you have your options to add from spare or new device, right? Add from spare, same idea, right? You're recycling a device. New, here are your options. So first up is SIP phone. This is that physical VoIP device, right? You have these manufacturers to choose from. Some of them have a lot of models, right? Some, not too many. But no matter what device you're using, you want to find the make and model that you're working with, then you give it a name, right? So like David's phone or break room phone, right? Uh, I usually recommend against using things like phone one or phone A because 6 months from now you may not know where that is or who that really belongs to or who it's supposed to belong to, right? The MAC address, this is unique to each device. Typically a sticker on the back of the device, or if the phone is plugged in, you can usually find it like under its status settings or its basic settings. And then you would click on Create Device, right? Then you would come back here and then click on Save Changes. Now, once you've done that, click on the device again. Go to Advanced, and you want to select Miscellaneous. And where it says Allow Reprovision, click on Unlock, and then Save Changes. In terms of our dashboard, at this point, you're basically done with the phone. However, you need to log into the phone's web user interface and basically tell the phone to go to a specific URL to get its config file. Now, for the specifics of that, you're going to want to click on the little graduation cap icon here to get to our support pages and do a search for auto provisioning phones, or auto provisioning should be enough to bring it up. That will get you a document that will have the screenshots and the specific syntax for that URL for each of these manufacturers. And then the phone should reboot usually a couple times, after which it will show up as a green device on your user. All right, next up is cell phone. Right, you give it a name and then you put in +1 area code and phone number. Right, no spaces, dashes, or parentheses. So if we go here, oops, right, so it should look like this. And then you would click on Save Changes, and then save changes to, or actually you would click on create device and then save changes. Now, let's go to the advanced options here. This is the default setup for a new phone. What this means is when we send a call to the cell phone number, right? My phone rings, I pick up, I'll hear a message initially saying, this is a forwarded call, please press 1. When I press 1, I'm telling the system, yes, I'm there, and yes, I want to take this call. It then connects me, and I can speak to the person, right? So this is great if I'm sending a call to a person, because at least when you pick up, you know, oh, this is a work call versus some rando, right? Obviously, if it's someone you know, you probably have them in your phone already. Now, let's say, for instance, I contracted out with an automated answering service to handle my after-hours calls. They give you a phone number, say, hey, just send calls to this phone number, and we'll handle your calls. So you would add it as either a cell phone or landline on your Dash account, right? But you'd want to change this setting here, right? Because if we're sending it to an automated answering service, then when it picks up, it doesn't know to press 1, right? So you want to change this, put a check mark here, click on Save Changes. So now, when we send that call to your automated answering service, right, it will pick up. Our system hears that pickup tone and just connects the call. It doesn't wait for anything else, right? It doesn't play that message about this is a forwarded call, please press 1. It just sends it through, right? So then your automated answer service can handle the call. Everyone's happy. Now, if this is really my cell phone, then what could happen with this setting is if I don't pick up the call on my cell phone, but my cell phone voicemail picks up, right? Dash views that as a pickup tone. So connects calls. So that inbound call ends up on my personal cell phone's voicemail. Some people want that, some people don't. The other thing that can come up sometimes is this one here, keep a regional caller ID. And what this is say customer Mary is giving me a call, comes into through my system, goes to my cell phone, and on my cell phone, I see her phone number. Now, if I have gotten lots of robo-dialers or telemarketers, for instance, maybe I just let it go to voicemail because I don't recognize the number, right? Then maybe I'm not able to reach back out to customer Mary in time. She's moved on to someone else, you know, what have you. So to avoid that, or to potentially avoid that, you can uncheck this, click on Save Changes. So now what happens when customer Mary calls, instead of seeing customer Mary's phone number, we go back to the dashboard, right? I'll see this 424 phone number show up, right? So hopefully I'll recognize my main number and say, oh, I'll answer the call because this could make me some money, or make sure a customer is happy, etc. All right. Next up is soft phone. Now, whenever you add a soft phone or a web phone to the account, you're first going to get this warning message. And it's basically saying, because of wireless VoIP technology, it's possible that when you call 911 from your soft phone, you might not actually be at the location that's associated with your soft phone. So just a warning message there. So make sure you at least read that once or twice. I try to read it every now and then just to remind myself. But you click close once you're done, you get this big box. Now, the way it looks right now, it's designed to be a third-party soft phone. And that just means you're using someone else's soft phone app, not the VirtualPBX soft phone. Now, basically in that case, you would give it a name, you'd copy and paste the SIP username, click on the SIP password box, so you can copy and paste that, and then your account realm, right? Those are 3 pieces of information you would need to program or provision that third-party soft phone application. If you want to use a VirtualPBX application, well, we started off in the right spot. You need to add it onto the user directly. And if you look down here below where it says View Configuration Guide, It says use third-party application here. It's kind of grayed out. If you click on it, it'll flip it. And now it says use VirtualPBX application. So now you just need to give it a name. Then you click on create device, and then you click on save changes. Once you click on save changes, Ariel here will get an email with the login information, right? The username and password, and download links for the VirtualPBX soft phone. One thing to keep in mind is for adding the VirtualPBX soft phone, you have to start here on the users. If you add a soft phone on the devices tab, you can only ever add a third-party soft phone. The web phone is probably the other major thing that comes up to add on to a user. Since the web phone uses your user's login information, so you give it a name, you click on create device, you click on save changes. The next time they log in, they'll have that web phone link here. They can also just open up a tab and go to webphone.virtualpbx.net and use their dash login there, again on Chrome or Firefox. All right, user features. All right, so first up here is caller ID number. This feature you can only enable on a user that has their own phone number, right? So you assigned it under that phone number column. But you click up here to enable. You select the phone number or phone numbers that they have associated with them, and then you click on Save Changes. Right, so whatever phone number you select here, that becomes their outbound caller ID whenever they make a call out from their VoIP phone. Right, that will supersede the default setting under the dashboard page. Virtual text application, this is a new feature. This basically allows you to do texting. If this feature is not showing up on your users, then you'll need to talk to our account services team. Right, you can email accountservices@virtualpbx.com. They're the ones who have to enable it on the account. They'll also talk to you about SMS registration. But once it's here, you turn it on, you select a phone number on your account, typically a main number, auto attendant number, or a number associated with the user, and then you click on Save Changes. When you do that, this person gets an email welcoming them to virtual text. They'll have login information. So it's possible at this point, you have a user that has 3 pieces of login information from us, right? Their dash login, their VirtualPBX soft phone login, and then their virtual text login. All 3 can be different. Virtual text, you can go to the website, virtualtext.app in your web browser address bar. You can also download the app directly to your phone. The major feature of virtual text is you can share numbers among your staff members. So that way, like, you can share your main number among your staff members. So you have multiple people that can make sure to keep track of text conversations with your customers. Voicemail box, you have to have an extension number in order to enable the voicemail box feature. But once you do, click enable. By default, voicemails to emails will be enabled. And what this means is this one here is we attach a voicemail message to the email notification. Right, so someone leaves a voicemail to a user and they'll get an email. Right, in the body of the email has the date, the time, phone numbers involved, the extension numbers. And then there'll be an MP3 attachment. So they can click on it, double click on it, listen to the voicemail directly from their email. Right, so that's the default way to listen to your voicemail messages. Now, voicemail boxes can hold up to 100 messages. After that, they are full and cannot accept any more. Now, in terms of checking voicemail, right, excuse me. So for checking your voicemail messages, right, you have that email notification so you can listen to it, but that doesn't delete it from your voicemail box. But you have 2 other options by default, right? The first option is you can call in, right? You can call your main number. If it rings to the virtual receptionist, you can hit *97, like say from your cell phone. It's going to ask you for your voicemail box number and your PIN number. You can listen to your voicemails over the phone and delete them. right? Or from your VoIP phone that's on your user, pick it up, hit *98, and logs you directly to your voicemail box. PIN number, again, listen to it, delete it. The other way to check is via the user portal, right? So you log into dash.virtualpbx.com. From the menu icon, you select the user portal. It defaults you to your voicemail tab. You can listen to it directly from your browser. You can delete them, etc. Now, you might have a voicemail box that's very busy, right? Let's say you have a lot of calls going into your main voicemail box, right? So it can get full quickly. And that kind of situation, you might want to look at this, which is to delete the messages after the email sent out, right? You put a check mark here. So now voicemail is left. The system sends out that email to the recipients of that voicemail box. It will then delete that voicemail from the voicemail box, so that way the voicemail box doesn't get full. Now, that means the only way to check the voicemail is via email. So if you're not getting your message, if you have problems with your email, it's possible you may not be getting your messages. Transcription, this is, if you enable this, this means the system listens in on the voicemail and types it out in that email notification to the best of its ability. Right? So if people have a bad microphone that picks up lots of background noise, that's going to impact the quality. Or if people aren't even speaking into their microphone properly, right? That can also cause problems. Follow me. This is for users with multiple devices. All right, you would click enable, and it starts off looking like this. You have to tell the system which devices you want to send calls to. So then here where it says do not ring, you need to uncheck the boxes next to those devices. And then where it has these zero, those little green bars, you can click and drag to the right to give it a ring time. Now up here at the top, there's a ring. These are timestamps, right? You can edit this last box to say 60, for example. You can also click distribute. So now it's going to ring this phone first and then this web phone. You can click and drag, click distribute. Now I change the order, right? And then you click on save changes. One thing to know about Follow Me is that calls from a ring group that come to this user ignore the Follow Me settings, which we'll cover again when we get to the groups. Fax box, you can choose to have a user have their own fax box, and then you need to add a spare number or a new number, or you can assign an extension. I personally recommend making use of a phone number. This will allow that user to send and receive faxes without any kind of issue. If you choose an extension number, one, the user can only ever receive faxes. They're never going to be able to send out. And that's because whatever setting you choose here is what the system will use for the outbound caller ID for the fax. So if you choose an extension number, it just uses that extension number as the outbound caller ID, which is going to fail. The other concern is the email to fax services or eFax services that are out there, at least the ones I've looked at. They only let you send faxes to just a phone number, right? They don't have a provision to send to an extension number beyond or behind that phone number. So you potentially limit who can also send you a fax, which is why I say try to use a phone number. But whatever you choose, then click on Save Changes, and this person then has their own fax box. Conference Bridge, up here, click to enable. The main thing you need to do is set up a conference room PIN number for the user. This is something they can change on their own via the user portal, and then you click on Save Changes. The enable video conferencing, if you turn this on, that just means your staff members can make use of video conferencing. Anyone outside of your organization that calls in the conference rooms will not be able to. Call forwarding. So you have off, on, and failover mode. So your staff members can turn call forwarding off or on their own. Right? They can do that via the user portal, or if they're a VoIP phone user, they can actually use feature codes to turn it off or on. Failover mode is something you would have to enable, and that is, or what happens is basically the VoIP phone on the user becomes unregistered. right? So the dog runs by the phone, rips out the cable, the phone's all on the floor, and a call happens to come to the user right at that time. With failover enabled, the call wouldn't go to voicemail. Instead, it would go to this phone number that you designated. Now, this should have a +1 in front of it. So +1 area code and phone number. Actually, this looks like an international number. So here we'll put, right? So it should look like that, right? So +1 area code and phone number, no spaces, dashes, or parentheses, and then you click on Save Changes. Right. Customize call recording. You can choose to record calls on your account. You just click here to enable. Right now, you're not recording anything. If you clicked enabled and save changes, you're not recording anything, right? You have to tell the kinds of calls you want recorded. So inbound internal, right? This would be a coworker call, right? So coworker Bob called Ariel. Do I want to record it or leave it off, right? Inbound external customer Mary called Ariel. You can turn that on because I want to have that, right? Outbound internal, Ariel called coworker Bob. Right? Outbound external, Ariel called customer Mary back. So we don't want to see something like this or all four, generally speaking. And then you could click on Save Changes. Now, your account includes some amount of data storage as part of your monthly plan price. If you just signed up, check the pricing page. If you're on an older plan, you'd have to talk to our account services team. If you have high call volume and you're recording every call, you're probably going to want to look at AWS storage, right? So Amazon Web Services, and you would have to talk to our account services team about turning on that AWS integration on your account. And this will allow you to link your Dash account to AWS so you can store your call recordings there. With high volume calls and recording every calls, it's typically more cost effective to go via AWS than with us. All right. Music on hold. You can choose to have your staff members have their own hold music. You would just click to enable, and then you would upload a file, or you can, this is a pull down, which unfortunately isn't showing, but you can choose any existing file that's on the account, right? So hold music file, any MP3 or .wav file. Otherwise, find it on your computer, click the up arrow icon, and click on Save Changes. So for instance, in my mind, the things you would do this is like your salespeople, you would have one set of hold music. So that way, you're talking about promotions that they're having, right? Or whereas for like your tech support people, you would just have a different, either a generic hold music or something talking about, hey, go to our FAQ page to find, most common solutions. Do not disturb. If you turn this on, that means, and save changes, the calls to this user go to voicemail. Right? Basically, they're not accepting calls. Hot desking is a VoIP phone feature. This allows you to answer calls at a different phone. Right? So it's for like a shared office environment. So say Ariel comes in the office on Tuesday, he sits down at desk number 2. Picks up the phone, hits *11. That turns on hot desking on his phone, enters his hot desk ID, right? So 1973 here. And then the system will tell him that calls will now be sent to him at this device, right? So the rest of his workday, calls are ringing to him at desk number 2. End of his day, he picks up the phone, hits *12 to turn off hot desking, he goes home. Next time he's in the office, let's say it's Friday, he sits down at desk number 5 because Angela's already at desk number 2, picks up the handset at the phone, *11, enters his hot desk ID. Now calls are coming to him at desk number 5. And I want to backtrack a little bit to phone numbers here. There's a little gear icon here next to the phone number. So here you can adjust the caller ID for a phone number, right? So you get outbound CNAM information. You can also turn on the ability to accept inbound CNAM information, right? So the name information shows up on your staff members' phones. You have E911. Each phone number can have its own E911 address, right? So if Ario is working from home most of the time, I can put in his home address here on his phone number. So that way, if I go to his devices, for instance, I think it's on here. So for most of your VoIP phones, under advanced, you do emergency caller ID, and you can select the specific phone number and then use that address for the outbound caller ID or the outbound E91 caller ID, right? So that's the information that gets transmitted to emergency services. And then prepend is a VoIP phone feature. This allows you to put text in front of the caller ID that shows up on your staff members' VoIP phones. All right, so once you have users, you can then create groups. Groups, ring groups, or hunt groups, right? Basically, any number of people who answer calls about the same kind of topic, where they have the same kind of role. Right? Up here at the top, you click on Add Group. You give it a name, you give it an extension number, and then you click and drag your staff members that you want in the group. Then you click on Create Group, and they show up in this list here. Once a group is created, you can click on its name, right? So you can always change the name. But the main thing people look at is this one here, group call attempts. This is the number of times the system offers the calls to the member in the group. The little arrows here to the right, so you can increase or decrease it as necessary. So as you make changes, click on Save Changes. You also have the option here to delete a group if you no longer need it. Then you have the members box. When you click on it, shows who you've assigned to the group and how you're offering calls to them. So this setup here is referred to as blast ringing or ring all. So ringing everybody at the same time for the same amount of time. Basically, whoever picks up the call first gets it. Now, what can happen, right? So call comes in, ringing everybody at once. Bob picks up, right? Answers the call. Well, Aaron could have picked up just about the same time, but the system said, oh no, Bob answered it first. So Bob is speaking to the customer, Aaron just gets dead air. Now, if you're all in an office, that's pretty easy to determine, oh, okay, Bob got the phone, not a big deal. But if everyone's working remotely, you may need to double check that. You know, have your staff members, hey, did someone get this call? Blah, blah, blah. Now, up here along the top, you have timestamps. The default is 120 seconds, right? 2 minutes. I mean, you could set it up to 600, right? Or you can click distribute here. So now it rings in time. If I change this down to, say, 340, right, then I would want to click redistribute to equal it out. Now, when you have it set up like this, right, the first call comes in, it always rings to Bob first. It's not going to skip him even if he's on another call. Right, call comes to him, he will hear a call waiting beep on his phone. Right, but if he's handling that first call, that second caller, in this case, is waiting basically a minute before it's offered to Aaron. Right, so in that case, maybe I want to change that back to 120. Right, so now that second caller only has to wait like 20 something seconds. I can adjust it. Right, so there's a little bit more overlap so that those later callers don't have to wait on hold quite as long. Now, let's say Bob has this project that he needs to work on, right? Like I need him to get this project done and it needs to be his primary focus. What I can do is click on his name and drag him down to the bottom. Now, I haven't changed the order yet until I click distribute. So now Aaron's first, right? Bob's last. And then I can still adjust these if I need to. And then I would save changes. Down here is where I would add additional people. So let's say I'm hitting my busy season, right? So I can add some additional people to my group. Right now they're added at the beginning, but I can click distribute. So now that now they're at their end. And again, I can always adjust the timing of these and then remove if I need to remove something, like someone's role changed, right? Okay, you know, don't need to be in this group. And any changes you make, click on Save Changes. Right? Groups have to have an extension number, right? You needed to have one when you created it. You can add additional extension numbers if they need to have multiple extension numbers. Groups can have their own phone numbers, right? So buy a new or add from spare, right? Pick a number from the list, click on Save Changes, and then that phone number rings to this group only. One thing I probably didn't mention under users, but it applies to groups as well. When you assign a phone number directly to a user or directly to a group, those phone numbers are open 24/7, right? They don't have hours of operation or holidays or anything, right? So they're just coming into them whenever they get dialed. Right. Group features. So first up, we have ring back. So call comes into the group, rings my staff members. That ringing sound is then piped back to my inbound caller, right? Ring back. If I don't want that ringing sound to play back to my inbound caller, I can enable the ring back feature, and I can upload a media file, right? .wave.mp3 recorded in mono under 1 MB. In this case, I already have Don't Worry, Be Happy, and then I would click on Save Changes. Next up is Next Action. To me, this is the most important feature, right? So you click here to enable. And then it's here is if no one answers the call, where do you want the system to forward the call to, right? So this is the pull down. Right? So you can send it back to your main menu. You can send it to a call queue if you have the call center feature. You can send it to a specific phone, right? Specific device that's already on the account. You can send it to another group. You can send it to a specific user, or most commonly, you can send it to a voicemail box and then save changes. All right, so now that we have users and groups in place, let's go back to main number here. All right, so first up, you have your main company numbers. All right, so these are all the numbers you have. You can add from spare or by new, and they would just be directly added here. Right, you get the little gear icon, so you can update the caller ID, E911, or prepend. If you don't want to use a number here, then you could go ahead and unassign it. Now, when you unassign a number, you're not removing it from your account. You're just removing it from this location. Right, so it's still on your account. It's under your spare numbers tab, which we'll get to. Next up, once you have numbers in place, you have office hours strategy. You have 24-hour open office or custom office hours. Right? If you choose custom office hours for each day of the week that you're open, put a check mark here, and then set your open hours in 24-hour or military time. So you see here, I'm open Monday to Friday from 8:30 to 4:30, and I'm under Pacific time. Down here at the bottom, you can choose to be closed for lunch. You put a check mark here, and then you put your lunch hours in 24-hour or military time, and that just means your phone system goes into lunch, right? So then you get different routing during your lunch hour. And then any changes you make, click on Save Changes. And then we have office holidays. So if you're closed for holidays, put a check mark here. Then over here to the right, you have Add Holiday. You have Single Day, Date Range, and Advanced. Right? Clicking on any one of those will create a new row. So first up, you need to give it a name. Then you choose the month and the date for single day. Click on Save Changes. If you need to get rid of it, you click on the little trash icon, then Save Changes. Date range, just like I have here for Christmas holiday. Give it a name. Start date, end date. Save Changes. There's no year indicator here. So as a precaution, we recommend against having a date range that includes New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. I basically have one end on New Year's Eve and the other one start on New Year's Day. That hasn't run into a problem for any customers in many years, but just in case. And then advanced, we have here for Thanksgiving. Right, so you give a name, you choose the month. This middle pull down, you have the choice from 1st through 5th, as well as last, and then the day of the week. So like Memorial Day, you would choose May, choose last, and then Monday. And then Save Changes. And then we have incoming call handling. So for my main numbers, how do I want my system to handle calls during my open hours versus my after hours versus my holidays? Now, these first three options will always show up. This fourth one only comes up in a couple circumstances, so I'm not going to get too involved in that. But this first one here, call comes in, goes to the virtual receptionist, also referred to as an auto attendant. You can click on the virtual receptionist, open up a big box. Over here on the left, main menu. These are what people press on their phone to navigate through your phone system. Right? Press 1 for sales, 2 for support. Right? Then Down here, you click on Add Route. That gives you a new row. The pull down, you have 0 through 9, the star key, and the default action. And then here is the locations. So let's get rid of that. So if we go up here, right, the Smart PBX directory, that's for any of your users that you've included in the user directory, right? Any users you've already added can be a menu option, right? Press 1 to speak to Bob. Go down here, call queues. If you're making use of the call center feature, you can have a menu option go to one of your call queues. Groups, right? So we have that front desk group. You can have menu option 1 go to the front desk group, so it rings all those staff people. Devices, a specific phone, right? So that way this one phone will ring. Now, if that phone doesn't have built-in voicemail, that might be slightly problematic. And we'll scroll down here. You can also have a menu option go directly to voicemail, right? So press 1 to leave a message, right? And then you can assign the specific voicemail that you wanted to go to. And then you also have the option for a media file. That's typically used for like hours of operation or directions. But once the media file stops playing, the call ends. So something to be aware of there. Over on the right, first up, you have your greetings. You have these types of greetings that you can add to your account. So first up is text-to-speech. This lets you type in a greeting. It uses up to 250 characters, not words, characters. It doesn't count spaces. And then after you click update, save, and save changes, it will play back in a computer as a robotic voice. Now, the system doesn't allow you to name these files yourself when you do text-to-speech. It names it for you. So in this case, it's going to be called main open hours menu TTS, right? Text-to-speech. So that can be problematic because let's say you called in, oh, that didn't sound right. Oh, I forgot a menu option. So you come in here and you type in something else. All right. So once I click update, save, and save changes, now I'm going to have two files called main open hours menu TTS. That can be confusing later on. So what I recommend is when you make a text-to-speech greeting, right, which is typically good for like testing purposes, or you're just like if you've never used a PBX system, or you're just starting out, like new business, maybe you're not sure exactly how you want things to work. That's fine, right? These are free; they're not charged. You're not charged for this. But when you make a text-to-speech greeting, right, after you click update, and save changes, over here on the left is the greetings tab, right, just below devices. You want to click on there, find that main open hours menu TTS file, and change the name to something that's, at least main greeting 1. So that's the first one you made. Okay. You can upload your own file, right? .wave.mp3, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. Choose the file on your computer and then click update. It will upload it, save and save changes. Choose from the existing file, right? This is a pull down. It shows all of your media files, old music files, main greetings, voicemail greetings. That's why you want to have names that you can recognize easily. Then you can also record it over the phone. Now, the system starts off by saying pick up a phone registered to this account. What that really means is pick up a VoIP phone on the account that's already registered. It's a security feature, basically saying, hey, this phone's already associated with this account. You can pick it up, dial your main number. If you don't have a greeting already in place, then when you dial your main number, the system will say that the greeting for this menu has not been recorded yet, and then prompt you to enter your PIN number. Once you do that, it will walk you through recording it over the phone, and it will be a saved file on your system. If you already have a greeting in place, right? So let's say I add the text-to-speech greeting, right? So I call in, I'm like, oh yeah, my customer's right. This doesn't sound right. When that greeting is playing, I can still enter in this PIN number, and then the system will recognize it and walk me through recording it over the phone. Now, when I do that, the file name for my text-to-speech greeting, right, that stays the same, but the content just got changed. Right now, it will also change the source under the greetings tab, so you can know, oh, this was when I recorded the phone, and you can still change the name later. Now, this PIN number only good during my open hours, right? Only good during this time of day. So if I called in on Saturday and tried to use this PIN number, it's not going to work. Now, if you want to use a phone that's not a VoIP phone, right? Let's say you have a phone, a buddy who's got that great phone voice, and he's just going to use a cell phone. Then what you would want to do is here under settings, go down to allow outside recording and turn this on. This turns on the ability to change your main greeting from an outside phone number. So then your buddy can call in, enter in this PIN number, and then record the script that you prepared for them. They save changes. Now you have that recording in place. I recommend after you've done that to turn this back off and then save changes. So that way someone can't randomly enter the PIN number by accident and then mess around with your main greeting. Professional recording services, when you click order, this will open up a new tab and take you to Snap Recordings. They have many voice actors and actresses to choose from, various versions of English. They can offer multilingual greetings. They have their own pricing and packaging packages, I should say. Basically, they bill you directly via credit card, and then they send you the file via email. So then you can just upload your own file. All right, settings. The first one here, number of retries on missed dial. This is how many times your inbound caller can make a mistake. All right, so when it's set to 1 like this, that means my inbound caller can make 2 attempts to connect to a valid entry. All right, so they call in, they can press one of my valid options here, or by default, they can press and enter an extension number. But let's say for whatever reasons, they press 5. Right? That's not a valid entry. It's not an extension number. The system will play the main greeting again, right? Give them that second attempt. And let's say they press 9 the second time. Not a valid menu option, not a valid extension number. At that point, the system will send them to my default action. Right? In this case, they would be leaving a message. If I don't have a default action, let's say I remove that, then instead the system would say, sorry, we did not recognize your entry, goodbye, and end the call. Now, dialing timeout, this is how much time the system listens for an additional button press after the first one, right? So caller calls in, right? They press 5 that first time. The system would wait 5 seconds to see that they're entering additional digits for a multi-digit extension number, right? So let's say if they entered 550, which is a valid extension, then the system will say, oh, okay, I'll transfer you, right? If they just left it at 5, then the system would go into that second attempt. We already covered allow outside recording. By default, allow dialing extensions is turned on, and that just means if the inbound caller enters a valid extension number, the system will transfer the call. If I turn that off, then when the inbound caller calls in, they can only press a menu option. Anything else is an invalid entry. And then lastly down here, the suppress the playing of the invalid entry message, right? So if you don't want the system to say, sorry, we did not recognize your call or your input or your entry, you can turn this on. So then if you have a default action, right, the system would automatically transfer the call to the default action or just end the call. Any changes you make to your main menu, your greetings, or your settings, you need to click Save here, and then Save Changes here. Right? You're clicking Save twice. Now, during my after hours, as I'm having calls, I'm offering it to my front desk group first. If they can't pick up, it goes to my virtual receptionist. Now, this is a pull down, right? So I can select a specific person, right? User, another group. I can send it to a call queue. I can send it to a specific device. It's like I can say, I have my after-hour cell phone person, right? Goes to that cell phone device, it gets passed around, whoever's on call that day. I could set it up that way. You could use a media file here. I recommend against it just because after that media file is done playing, you'll go to your virtual receptionist, or the caller ends up going to your virtual receptionist. Then they get a second file that plays, right? That might be confusing. And then you have a separate menu option here for your after hours. All right, typically my voicemail, a couple of voicemail options, and going to a queue, right? You can have your own greeting. and your different settings here. Here, normally what I see is this is more like this here. Uh, so you can have the option here go to a user, a group, a queue, a device media file, but you also have the extra option here at the end, skip the voicemail, and then you can choose to have it go to a specific voicemail box and then save changes. Now, I can choose to have my open hours, ring Aaron, right? And then the virtual receptionist would still be this one that we are looking at on the open hours. Some versatility there. All right, your main conference number, you can have multiple numbers, so you can add from spare or by new. You also have the option to add a custom text-to-speech greeting. You click enable, type in your greeting, 250 characters, and then save. I usually, on this account, I leave it disabled because basically when I call in, the system will still direct the inbound caller to enter the conference room number and the PIN number. The main fax box, you can have the one main fax box number. That's why I don't have the options to add anymore. But once you have added one, you can edit the fax box here. First up, we have the inbound notification email. This is designed to put an email address here, and this person will get an email every time a fax gets sent in. Right, so they get an email, has the date, the time, phone numbers involved, and then there'll be a PDF attachment. Now, if someone dials my fax box number from, say, their cell phone, right, they hear fax tones, most people hang up, this person still gets an email saying that there was a failed inbound fax attempt. Now, sometimes the caller ID information also is shown up under the in the email, right? It says the phone number, and then it will say like wireless number. Then that's an easy way to know, oh, that was just a misdial. The email permissions, this is for outbound faxing. Generally speaking, designed to put your company's email domain here. Right? So what I'm saying here is anyone at VirtualPBX can send a fax out on this account, even if they're not a user on it. Right? They just have to use their virtualpbx.com email address in the 2-field +1 area code and phone number. They would need my account realm for this account, and then they need to attach a PDF or TIFF. All right, auto attendance. This is a plan-specific feature, right? So available on some plans and not on others. A couple of use cases. The first is submenuing, right? So if you want calls to come in and give your callers an option to press 1 for English and 2 for Spanish, then you would need to have auto attendance set up for your English menu and your Spanish menu, right? So basically, the Spanish menu would have a greeting in Spanish, and then the menu options would go to your Spanish-speaking staff members. The other reason would be if you have multiple businesses and you want them on the same account, right? These multiple businesses, right? Each business would have its own number or phone numbers, their own main greetings, but maybe you're routing calls to the same staff people among your multiple businesses. Maybe not. Maybe you have, staff for each, but you can put them all in the same account. Makes it easier for billing purposes for yourself. Now, up here at the top, you click on Add Attendant. You give it a name. You give it an extension number. The extension number is not something your customers would ever really know, but useful for your staff in case, like, a Spanish-speaking customer calls in and gets to someone who speaks only English. That staff member can transfer to the Spanish auto attendant, for example. Then you click on Create Attendant. Now, once an attendant is created, right, you click on the name, it defaults like this to saying it's unavailable in main menu. That means it's a standalone attendant, i.e. designed to be a separate business. You can click on this. Now it says available in main menu. You click on Save Changes. So now that attendant will be a submenu option. Right, so that means it's available to be a menu option under your virtual receptionist. It could be a next action location for your groups, for example. Auto attendants can have their own phone numbers, right? Add from spare or by new. Right, you got a little gear icon here if you need to adjust that. Auto attendants can have multiple extensions if you want them to have them. And then lastly, you have the little wrench icon here under settings. See here, I have open hours, after hours, and holidays, right? That matches the information we set up under main number, right? So my secondary businesses have to have the same hours of operation as my primary. Now, if that's not the case for you, let's say you have a 7 day a week, 24/7 business, and another one that's Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. You'd want to talk to our account services team and see what your options are in terms of having them on the same account, or if you need to do two separate accounts. But beyond that, this is the virtual receptionist, right? So create menu options, you create a greeting, you adjust your settings, save changes. All right, the devices tab shows all your devices on the account. Black devices you have turned off, right? So under this column here, you can click it on to turn it back on or turn it off. Red means it's unregistered, i.e. we can't send a call to it. That could be like for a soft phone, someone hasn't logged in. For a physical VoIP phone, it's not plugged in maybe, or they're having an internet issue, or maybe just a network issue. Green device registered, so we can send calls to it. Up here at the top, you can add devices, again, just like under the user, right? You have SIP phone, cell phone, landline, etc. The main thing to point out is for the soft phone, you have no option to change it to say use VirtualPBX device. Right? So if you want to make use of the VirtualPBX soft phone, you have to add it directly on the user. You can click on the wrench icon here under advanced audio. For any physical device, right, you want to make sure you have G711A and G711U. The VirtualPBX soft phone uses Opus. So those are the three primary codecs you may want to make use of. Restrictions typically should match what your account settings are at, not normally looked at. External caller ID, you can select one of your phone numbers on your account so that this device always has a specific outbound caller ID. All right, emergency caller ID, right? You can select the phone number so that way a specific device has a phone number and address associated with it that's specific to that person's location, right? So that way when they call 911, the correct address information is transmitted to emergency services. And that is that. Greetings tab shows all your media files on the account, right? So main greetings, voicemail greetings, hold music files. Up here at the top, you can add more, right? So give it a name. Click browse to find the file on your computer, .wave.mp3 under 1 megabyte. I recommend a recording in mono. Click on create greeting. It will upload it here. It doesn't assign it anywhere, right? This is tell you, hey, you have greetings. Here, first column, you have the name. Second column, second column, you have the source, right? TTS, text to speech. Upload means it was uploaded. Recording means recorded over the phone. You have a playback column here, right? You click on the little play icon, it will play it back in its play back the greeting directly in your browser, right? So you can listen to it, make sure it's still something you need. If for some reason that doesn't work, then you have the download column here, so you can download the file directly to your device and use your native media player to listen to it. And then here, the wrench icon to edit. So this is where you can change the name, or you can remove the greeting if you don't need it any longer. The numbers tab starts you off on numbers in use. This just shows you where your numbers are assigned. You got the gear icon here, so you can update the caller ID, E911, or prepend for any phone number. The spare numbers, these are the numbers you're not currently using. Now, if you want to remove a number from your account, this is where you go, right? So you have to first make sure it's a spare number. And then you find the numbers you want to get rid of. Say we'll get rid of these two. Right, now I have the option to delete that just popped up. So I click on delete, I confirm it, and now I have 2 less phone numbers on my account. All right, by numbers, local or toll free, just adds new numbers to your spare number list. Port is just moving a number from one carrier to another, right? So generally speaking, like say you're moving from like AT&T to VirtualPBX. That's why you would start this program or process is to move a number to us, right? To your account with us. You give it a name, choose local or toll free. You will click next. It then asks you to upload a PDF of your most recent bill from your current carrier. And then as you continue through the process, it's going to ask you for the address information associated with your account with your current carrier. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Um, it's going to ask for things like the account number, the BTN, which is the billing telephone number. So if you're only porting one number, you only need that one number you're porting is your BTN. If you're porting multiple numbers, you probably want to double check with your current carrier. Some carriers require a PIN number to port out. You're going to want to get that from your carrier ahead of time. Some carriers actually, put that number on the invoice. Others make you contact them directly in order to get the PIN number. This is especially true for cell phones or cell phone numbers, right? That's a security feature, so that way, when a phone number ports out from a cell phone, right, the number comes to, let's say, comes to us, that cell phone will stop working unless you get a new number from your cell phone carrier, right? Because now that number is now a number on your account and then routes to the devices on the account, but it's no longer associated with your specific cell phone. Then you'll be given an opportunity to download a blank letter of agency or LOA that does need to be completed and signed, right? So that does ask you for like the company name, the address information that your current carrier has on file, and the phone numbers you're porting, as well as a PIN number if necessary. It does. I have to stress this enough, or stress this more. It does that document, the LOA, needs a signature, whether it's a digital signature file or you printed it out, signed it manually, and scanned it back in. It does need a signature, right? Typing it in your name twice gets rejected. Printing your name twice gets rejected. And this delays when your port's going to complete. Generally speaking, toll-free numbers take about a week to port. A local number, it can range. It averages about 2 to 3 weeks. And in both cases, that assumes everything is correct. When we submit a port request, if we get a rejection, we always double check to make sure there wasn't a typo from us, right? Or in the case of like addresses, like if you have one address on your LOA, but your bill had a second address, we'll try the second address to see if that will go through. If we determine, okay, there's nothing else we can try, then we let you know saying, hey, we're getting a rejection for this reason. Please check with your current carrier on what the correct information should be. All right. Voicemail boxes shows all your voicemail boxes on the account. Any voicemail box that has a username here under the third column, that means that was the voicemail box created with the user, right? So it's intrinsically tied. The ones that are blank, these are ones that were created here on this voicemail page. Up here at the top, you click Add Voicemail Box, give it a name, give it a voicemail box number and a PIN number, click on Create Voicemail Box. You would do this, for instance, for any a voicemail box for a group or for a call queue or just a general voicemail box that you don't want to use the main voicemail box, but you want to use something else or give it a different name. Once a voicemail box is created, under Advanced, go to Greeting Media. You can upload a media file, right? That's the voicemail box greeting. With the basic information, you can call in and record it over the phone as well, right? But under Advanced Greeting Media, this is the pull down allows you to select an already uploaded media file. Otherwise, you can upload your own .wav.mp3 recorded in mono. The temporary file, right? This is that vacation or out of office message. So if you have something selected under temporary and media, right? You have something selected under both, only the temporary file plays. The media file will not play again until you set temporary back to none and then save changes. Recipients. So your user voicemail boxes have a built-in recipient already, right? The email address used for login for that recipient, for that user. For any voicemail box you create on the voicemail tab or the main voicemail box, you'd want to come here and click Add New Recipient and put an email address here. If you need to add multiple, you just click Add email address, click Add new email address. And then when you're done, click on Save Changes. Once you have a media file in place and recipients in place, right here next to already set up, put a check mark here, and then you can double check if that you have attached voicemail messages to email, and or if you want to delete after the notification. And then you click on Save Changes. Call logs. This shows your call history on the account. So if we go back to this month, green arrow to the right is a call coming into the system. You can click on it to get further details, and you can see it reached out to this cell phone and that the caller was picked up. Right, yellow arrow to the left, that's an outbound call on the system. And basically it was this device that was used, and then they hung up before the other person could answer. Right, you can see the current week as well. You can download these as a CSV file. So if you're good with spreadsheets, you can get some more information about the calls. Custom allows you to set your date range. Right, so you can go back to the previous month, for example, then click on filter, shows your previous month's calls, and then you can download them. The system will let you go back up to 12 months. Our engineers can go back up to a total of 18 months. After that, the data is no longer available. So if you need the call log information for any kind of compliance reasons, I recommend doing this every month. Just download it. That way you can just, hey, this is May 2023, and move on with your life. Feature codes. I've talked about a couple of these, but these are a way for your VoIP phone users to access Dash features directly from their VoIP phone. Shortcut keys, basically. This information is a page on our website. It's also on our support pages. There's also a document called Phone Commands Cheat Sheet, which will have this, and it will include the context help here. All right, so let's go. This has all been the dashboard. So next up is blacklists. So blacklists is a way to block numbers from reaching your account, right? So you don't want these people to get through to you. So what you would do is click Edit Blacklists, click Add to create a new list, or in this case, I'm just going to click on an existing list, right? But when you click Add List, right, you give it a name, and then you choose, are you blocking anonymous calls or not? Right, so i.e., anonymous calls means a call comes in and it's not presenting valid caller ID. So if you leave this off, that means they come through, right? So they ring to your staff members. If you turn it on, they get busy tone. Beyond that, you come here, click on Add Number, put +1 area code and phone number, no spaces, dashes, or parentheses. Keep clicking Add until you're done adding phone numbers. Then when you're done, click Save down here at the bottom right. Then on the top right, click on Back to Settings. Make sure your lists over here on the right under Selected, right? And that means you might have to click and drag. And then click Update. Now, any phone number on these two lists, if they try to call any of my company numbers, they get busy tone. Faxes, this is your fax manager. This is included on your account, as is blacklists. It starts you off on your inbound fax tab. Select on, in this case, the main fax box. Here I see the date and the time, the phone numbers involved. I can see the number of pages. I can download the document and see what was faxed. Next up, I can click on the outbound fax tab. Select the fax box in question. Here I can see the successes and failures. If you see a failure here, that means we had a problem communicating with the other phone number. Now, that could be we got busy tone. That could be we actually connected initially and then something interrupted the transmission. Sometimes under this far right icon here, little detail icon, you might get something beyond just failed. Lately, that's all I've seen, but every now and then we'll see something like user busy, right? Which means the line was busy when every time we try it. Now, when we try to send a fax out, we try it 3 times. You hit the little refresh icon here to see for new faxes. And again, when you send a fax out, remember, it takes time for the system to process everything. So you're not going to get an immediate response, even here under the logs. The email to fax logs, if you see an entry here, right, little thumbs down icon, that means we had a problem processing this request, right? So it never made it to their phone number. Click on the little eyeball icon under details at the far right. And under errors here, you see there is no valid attachment. That could be no attachment was actually included, right? But it could also be, oh, they tried to send a JPEG instead of a PDF. Again, sometimes it'll actually tell you the document that a type that was tried. So then you can say, oh, that's definitely the wrong type. And you can confer with the other person. It tells you who it came from. So if someone uses their personal email address, right, under the details, it'll say like this person was not a user on the account. Easy way for you to tell that. All right, number manager, this just takes you to your spare number page. Reports is advanced reporting feature. This is a plan-specific feature, so available on some plans, not on others. This allows you to create your own reports. If you look in the description of this stream, you should see several links, but one of them is for the advanced reporting demo. This will show you some of the things that can be done under reporting. And if you're interested in this, then you'd want to talk to our account services team to make sure you can get it enabled on your account and then set up a training for it. Voicemails, this takes you to your voicemail manager. So you can get to any voicemail box on the account. Right, you can see the messages that are currently there, right? So if they're full, get rid of them. Right. If you click on the box in front of a message, you can move a voicemail to another voicemail box, or you can change its status. Right, you can play it back, you can download it, etc. Call center, this is the call queues, right? ACD queues. Under the description, you want to look at the ACD queues Pro demo link. That will show you what the call center is like. Basically, they're an advanced form of groups, right? So you have different routing options. You have things like round robin, which will equalize out over time, or like most idle. So whoever's been waiting the longest for a call gets the next call that comes in. You have features like a manager can eavesdrop in on a call, right? So they can listen in or whisper so they can help their agent out at the time, or even barge in to take over a call if necessary, right? So that's a good training tool. And there's also some basic statistics, excuse me. Dynamic caller ID, this is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to create rules to change your outbound caller ID of your VoIP phones. Right, you would click on Create New Rule. I'm going to click Edit next to an existing rule. So you give it a name, then you choose a phone number on your account. And then you choose your parameter. So in this case, I went with whenever my staff members dial 408 on their VoIP phones, the system will automatically change their outbound caller ID to this 669 phone number. Right, 669 is an overlay for the 408 area code, San Jose. And that will happen every time. Now, alternatively, like I have over here, right, I said this is Los Angeles, it's going to display a 323 phone number. And instead, what I'm saying is when my staff members dial star 550 on their VoIP phones and they enter the area code and phone number they're calling out to, this system will see that and change their outbound caller ID to this 323 phone number. Right? So it looks like that's an LA area code or Southern California. So it looks like it's local to whoever they're calling to. Now, if you're making use of the feature codes, I do suggest using star and then 3 digits, so that way you don't conflict with the feature codes that are built into the system. Right, monitor, another plan-specific feature. This allows you to see the status of your staff members. Doesn't matter what devices they're using. Right, so right here I have, this is a test count, so it's not really showing you live, but I can choose employees or devices. Right, I have all, who's available or who's busy. Kind of grayed out here, but on the left, it's all active inbound calls. Each call would have a blue box and showing who they're speaking to. Likewise, if say Bob was on a call, right? He would be blue and would show the number that's calling into him. And then if you have anyone parked, right, parked calls, it would show their parking spot number here to the right. The recordings manager, this opens up a new tab, takes you to recordings.virtualpbx.com. It uses your Dash login to log into that page, and that's where you would view your call recordings. You can download them, you can play them back, you can delete them. Webhooks, this is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to create rules to link, or ways, I guess, to link your Dash account to other software. So basically, that means you're going to have at least two accounts, right? An account with us and an account with somebody else. This is something you'd actually want to speak to our sales team about. They have the more information on this. You can also go to developer.virtualpbx.com to see sample code of things we have done in terms of linking Dash to other software. Additionally, one of the other links in the description is the introduction to Zapier webinar, which does make use of webhooks, so it shows you some things that can be done there as well. And then lastly, we have the user portal. Every user has access to their own user portal. Right? It will default you to your voicemail tab, so your staff members can view their voicemails. They can listen to them by clicking playback. They can download. If they click on the box in front of it, they can change the status. They can view their call history, and then they can change the date range if they so inclined, again, to see their call history. The fax tab only works for users that have their own fax box, but this would see that way they can show their fax history. The contact list is all the information on your Dash account, right? So all the users, the groups, the auto attendants, call queues, etc. Basically, this allows your staff a way to see extension numbers, for example, to transfer calls to. Now, this is not something they can edit, right? They can't, like, realistically, I don't even know if they can change. Oh, yeah, they can change the order a little bit by like name and whatnot, but they're not going to be able to add anything here, right? So like your salespeople wouldn't be able to add their client list here, right? This is only within your Dash account. The conference tab only works for users that you've enabled the conference bridge on. Over here on the right, this is where they can adjust their conference room PIN numbers. Right, so the participant number for people who are joining in, moderator PIN for themselves. Here is they can choose to have people when they join are muted or deafened, as well as playing entry and exit tones. When they're in a conference, they can come to this page. On the little plus icon here, they can invite other Dash users to their conference. They can lock a conference so other people cannot join, mute everybody, unmute everybody, end the conference call. Also, while in a conference, each moderator and participant will have their own little box. This allows you to like mute a specific person or to kick out a specific person. And then settings and devices. So this right here is where your staff members can enable call forwarding on their own. They just click on the box here, enter in the area code and phone number they want calls forwarded to, right? So +1, area code and number, no spaces, dashes, or parentheses, and then they click on save. And to disable it, they would just uncheck it. And then press save again. And that is everything. So sorry about running a little long today. As I said, we'll be here basically every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific, except for the 4th of July weekend, or 4th of July day off, I guess. Check the links in the description for things like SMS registration, and we've had a couple other webinars about SMS. I think there's do's and don'ts about consent was the last one, and there'll be more of those in the future. Beyond that, I'm not seeing any questions, so I will thank you for your time today